Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth installment of the ACLU of Missouri's Legal Department's Legal Seminar Series. Today's guest speaker is Reverend Elston McCowen. He is the first Vice President of the NAACP here in St. Louis, Missouri. He will be discussing with us today civil rights resources beyond the ACLU. Reverend McCowan is the first Vice President of the St. Louis City NAACP. He has chaired both the Criminal Justice and Prison Committees. Reverend McCowan also serves on the Environmental Justice Committee for the Missouri State Conference of the NAACP branches, as well as the Prison Committee. He is the lead organizer of the Gateway Green Alliance. He is the Minister General of the Universal African People Organization. He is also a member of the Kingdom Destiny Fellowship International and past moderator of the Fellowship Outreach District, Inc. Reverend McCowan is the pastor of Star Grace Missionary Baptist Church, where his outreach ministry provides much-needed referrals to private and public assistance programs for families in need in the Walnut Park East neighborhood in North St. Louis City. His motto is, "Doing good in the neighborhood." Welcome, Reverend McCowan.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Hi.
All right. Oh, I hope we can do better than that. Good afternoon. Woo! All right. Now, I told you I was a preacher. So I won't ask for a whole bunch of amen, but a simple nod or bright eyes and attentiveness really helps me to continue on talking. Elaine asked me to come this afternoon. We were to talk about civil rights resources beyond the ACLU. And certainly the NAACP has partnershiped with the ACLU over the years on any number of situations. Give you just a little background about the NAACP. It was founded in 1909. It was founded by 60 people. Some of the names you may or may not know, and some names we've never really knew about where they're from or what they really did. But it was 60 people. How many people out of that 60 people do you think were African American? Seven. So the misnomer oftentimes is that the NAACP is a black organization. Certainly, when I make my introductions, I say I bring you greetings from the oldest, boldest, most revered, most feared, most loved, most hated, most dedicated, most respected civil rights organization in the whole wide world. But the reality of it is, if it were not for our partnerships on both sides and all around, we wouldn't be here. The mission of the NAACP basically is to eliminate discrimination, race prejudice in our lifetime through nonviolent democratic processes. So a lot of folks though think that the NAACP is some type of militant group, and we've had times where we actually went certain parts of Missouri, and I'm gonna tell you a story, and I'm gonna get back to my point. I love my stories though. So here we go. Here's what happens. We're doing after Mike Brown. The NAACP, our national president came, and we're doing this journey for justice. So we're gonna march from Mike Brown, where he got shot in Ferguson, to Jefferson City. But instead of taking the main road, which is safe and protected for all Missourians and any travelers throughout the country, we're gonna go the back rural route, which takes you to places, I'm thinking like Rosebud or some places like that. Now, if you're not familiar with Missouri, that name wouldn't necessarily mean anything to you, and I hope I got the right name. I don't want to give Rosebud a bad reputation if it wasn't Rosebud, but it was one of those rural communities. They said, you can't march through our town. And we said, well, why can't we march? This is a peaceful march. And she said, no, you can't march through our town. I said, well, we have a right to march. And the actual state troopers and people from the FBI were actually with us. And so we're gonna go and negotiate with the folks in the town, the townspeople. I love to say that, the townspeople. So we're gonna go talk to the townspeople. Now, in the middle of the road, the townspeople, mind you, they're all white now, and they're all locked arms, saying that the NAACP cannot march through our town. And one guy comes up, and we're negotiating with him, and he said, well, if you guys are going to march peacefully on there, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to march. You need to go talk to the sheriff. We said, well, where's the sheriff? So in the very middle of the street, where the yellow line is in the middle of the street, he says, that fella there with that cowboy hat on, those big boots, right there in the middle of town, that's the sheriff. And he is the tallest guy in the line, making sure we don't go through his town. That's the sheriff. So we go through. We start marching. The lady, one lady had a sign, NIGGA or something. And then they had chicken, watermelon, and beer. It was a long march, but that was, saying that that's what black folks like, chicken, watermelon, and beer. And unfortunately, I actually do like chicken, watermelon, and beer. And I looked over at the chicken, watermelon, and beer, so I said, but anyway, we're marching, and it was a silent march because we were trying to convince them that we're not burning down. Because remember, Mike Brown, after his murder, everybody started, not everybody, but stuff. They start rioting, and things got burnt up and all that kind of stuff. So they thought we were coming to burn up their town. And so we said, well, okay, we're going to do our silent march. And so we started silently marching through the city, Rosebud, or whatever. But it was so hard. We were scared, but at the same time, we're supposed to be silent. And if I'd have started breaking out laughing like I wanted to do, we really would have been in trouble, because they certainly would have thought I was really laughing at them. But I was laughing both because of fear, at the same time because this could not be real. Had you all ever heard anything like that before, or experienced anything like that before? It is really an amazing phenomenon to experience that in, I believe that was like 2016 or so when we marched, 2015 when we marched through Rosebud several years ago. But that was a strange one. So the point I'm making here is, those are the challenges that we have about people and the prejudice that they have, not only against other people, but against organizations that fight for the rights of other people. And that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. Local civil rights resources. I'm going to try to keep up with the time so I won't go, oh boy, time is going by fast too. Okay, so here's what I have. You should have a list of different organizations and groups. And I'm going to tell you about some of the partnerships that we've had with the ACLU over the years as well. Certainly you have the NAACP, you have our address, Arch City Defenders. If you know anything about Arch City Defenders, the excellent group. And like the NAACP, like the ACLU, do you know that folks are overwhelmed by the number of complaints to come in on a regular and consistent basis? You would think, and I was talking earlier before we got started, one of the things I believe that will solve some of those problems is if we actually start teaching social justice or discrimination or whatever you want to call it in the schools. Mm-hmm. People grow up and it seems like they living in some type of a vacuum or a silo, and they just stuck their head out all of a sudden, didn't realize that these complaints that you watched on television, read about in the newspapers, are about people who do what you're doing. You need not do that, because the NAACP is going to get you, the ACLU is going to get you, EEOC is going to get you. Somebody is going to eventually get you. And I'm all for the Me Too movement. And I am shocked and surprised how many people thought that that kind of behavior was okay to do to another human being. And that's the whole problem with not knowing some of these places that you need to have working on your behalf. Migrant and Immigrant Community Action Project. So those are local, state. Certainly as the ACLU is statewide, NAACP, of course, is statewide. And then you have the National Civil Rights Resources, National Urban League, Southern Poverty Law Center, and National Organization for Women. That's just the name. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the name of few. And there are any number of organizations. I wouldn't say that the Gateway Green Alliance is a organization you make a referral to to fight injustices, yet we have been known to stand out in front of grocery stores that say that they are not selling GMOs, genetically modified organisms. We have been out in front of Monsanto, and I can say Monsanto and Bayer. I can say that because it's true, it's in the newspaper, talking about the toxins in their weed killers and stuff like that. And in fact, somebody just was awarded $74 million for doing that kind of work. And nationally, we know that most of the folks who do grounds work are minorities. Not saying everybody's a minority, but that means that if they're doing it to us, they're doing it to you, and we need to make sure that it doesn't happen to anybody. And folks that have cancerous chemicals in their weed killers. And so there are any number of groups of people. I mean, I would think that in addition to these organizations, there are organizations inside our communities to where the leaders of those communities or organizations should have resources to assist people. Elaine and I met with a pastor of an inmate. I'm sorry, a pastor. Yeah, it was his pastor as well. His wife and his mother came and shared with us that they believe, based on his statements and on the records, that he has been in prison longer than what the court order was for. And so that was the pastor. And I would think that any imam, any sheikh, or anybody that's over a temple, that's over a church, should know resources in the community to assist their members and the community around it. As Elaine introduced me, she shared with you all that I'm the pastor of Star Grace Missionary Baptist Church. That's in a low-income neighborhood in North St. Louis City. It's in the Walnut Park East neighborhood because West has money, East doesn't. And so we're in the East neighborhood. And again, my motto there is doing good in the neighborhood, right? I always ask people, if your church, if your synagogue, if your temple were to leave the community, would your community miss you? And that's what I'm saying about not only these resources are there, but we also have a lot of untraditional resources. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna move on, but I'm gonna say this too. Inside your public schools, a lot of people don't know that they have what's called a family and community specialist. Guess what that person's job is? And I actually was a family and community specialist for a number of years. Their job is to remove whatever barriers that's in your way that keeps your child from coming to school on a regular and consistent basis, on time, prepared to learn. And so they have to have resources. And some of the resources is really getting you in contact with your mom that's in prison, getting you in contact with your dad that's in prison. You have psychological issues and concerns that are going on with you. And so that helps to allow you to concentrate so that you can sit there and do your work at school and learn as opposed to acting out. And those are the kind of things that the social worker, the counselor, and the family community specialist, along with the principal and everybody else, tries to work on. And so those are some of the non-traditional resources. And you say, well, what does all that have to do with discrimination? Well, what happens is we're asking the police, we're asking our school system, we're asking our institutions a lot of times to educate or police or provide services for poverty. And with poverty comes all of the social issues that comes with that. You know, it's prison, it's lack of education, it's poor health care, certainly poverty defined by not having a job or having low income. And so those are the things we're asking folks to do. And so with that being said, when you're talking about fighting discrimination, you're talking about fighting for people to get to where they're equal. And so you want to remove those barriers so that anybody's kid can be what they want to be. So anybody's kid can go to college. Anybody's kid can become a doctor, a lawyer, a police officer, and they don't have all these things fighting against them to keep them from being successful in life. And so let me move on just a little bit. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing real good on time. Okay, good. Okay. Case examples. All right, case examples. Here we go. So, I'll share with you all earlier that we've done some cases with ACLU. So Jeff came on board not too long after Jeff comes on board. Myself and the president, my president of our branch is Adolphus Pruitt. We go over to meet with Jeff. Have a nice conversation with him. We got to know him a little bit and start talking about, what are some of the issues out there in the community, blah, blah, blah. We leave, and then we get this complaint in Pine Lawn. That's about a city of about 2,000 residents, 99% African American. They have a mayor out there who is doing time in prison right now. People in the community were complaining that if you were opposing him in your elections, that he was harassing you. Sounded unbelievable. Okay, let's do this. Go get me 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people maybe. Let's sit down and have a neighborhood community meeting, and let me hear some other folks say some of the stuff this guy's doing. They're saying that they'll park his police cars out in front of your house. They will come and cite you for all sorts of city code violations. One 80-some-odd-year-old man was having a party, and people were sitting outside on the porch, his porch, after 12 o'clock, getting ready to leave, and the police came and beat them up and arrested them, even the 80-year-old man. And I'm like, God, get out. Nobody does that. You would think that the ACLU, NAACP, and nobody existed when you doing something like that. Nobody's gonna get you for doing that? You crazy. So so I said, give me some people. And so they got me about 20 people. We met in a church. A friend of mine let me use their church because they didn't want to meet in Pine Line because they knew if everybody met somewhere, somebody was going to tell and they're going to, retaliate. So we met at the church. And folks wrote all these complaints. I think I took about over 100 some odd complaints after the whole process was all over with. We took over 100 some odd complaints, ranging from you being put in jail. And if you couldn't make bond, you just stayed in jail. You didn't have a date where you got out. So Pine Lawn was actually holding you hostage. Police officers came in complaining about the mayor. Former police officers that worked for Pine Lawn came in complaining about the mayor. They were saying that people had stayed in there for several days and they didn't feed them. And that when they went to go get them some White Castles, they got written up for insubordination. Several of the police officers successfully sued Pine Lawn and got their jobs back. So here's what happens. We meet again. This is our second meeting with Jeff, second time meeting Jeff. I say, Mr. Mittman, we need your help. The guy that's the mayor of Pine Lawn, he's running for re-election. And what happened is all of his opponents, he arrested them, had them arrested, had them put in jail, fingerprinted them, and mugshot. Then had the nerve to put an orange jumpsuit on them like they're in jail. This is Pine Line. It's not a prison. This is jail, a holding cell. You with me? And so he puts them in orange jumpsuits and take mugshots of them. Then he puts together a newspaper saying that these are the people that are running against me. I said, Jeff, now, NAACP, we don't necessarily have lawyers in our local branches. We have national lawyers and things like that. And if it's a real big, giant case, like stuff we help with Mike Brown stuff or anything like that, we'll jump in on those. But for the most part, we refer those out and we talk to folks about taking our cases on pro bono or, at a reduced cost. But I knew Jeff would love this. I mean, you all know Tony. Mm-hmm. Tony. Oh, I didn't know Tony could dance. I was telling Tony about this. Tony was mad, happy, and just elated. Just how dare they do that? oh, we're gonna get them. And so one by one, each one of these folks came in. Tony took the case, and next thing I know, out of all the complaints that were going on, we talked to the FBI. This guy was actually, the mayor was actually going around bribing people, telling them if you want your business not to be written up and all kind of stuff, or you want to start a business, you need to put some money in my Mountain Dew cup or something. So he said, I like Mountain Dew. So that was his code word. You like Mountain Dew? And he give him $200, $300. He said, no, that's not enough Mountain Dew. And so this guy got sent to prison. He's in jail now, I think. He got sent to prison for extortion and those types of things. And the ACLU successfully sued on behalf of those three opponents of Mayor Caldwell was his name. Now, there is a bill being introduced now in the state of Missouri that says if you don't have a whole lot of folk, you don't need to be calling yourself a little town. Because again, folks aren't growing up understanding that if you go around doing this stuff, the police don't get you, CIA don't get you, the FBI don't get you, the ACLU going to get you, the NAACP going to get you, and we're going to send you over to the FBI and all these other places to get you your just desserts. Just deserves. So what ends up happening, these folks successfully sued, Tony successfully sued the city of Pine Lawn. Matter of fact, almost sued Pine Lawn out of existence. Amazing phenomenon. We went in and talked to the city administrator after it was all over. And he was trying to tell us that he didn't have anything to do with all this other stuff, and started backtracking, and then started behaving very, very well. And so Pine Lawn is a model city now. You're welcome to free to drive in and out of Pine Lawn without being harassed. I remember one time I was driving through Pine Lawn, and I happened to have this day, I hardly ever wear my NAACP hat. Nice little cool little blue cap with my little gold NAACP on it. And the police pulled me over in Pine Lawn. He comes up to my car. I kid you not. Can I move out the seat a little bit? Okay. I kid you not. He comes up to my car, and I turn around. He comes up to my car. Sir, do you have ID? And I turn around, man, he said, oh, never mind. and just ran on to his car and went on about his business. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying that we left, ACLU and the NAACP, left a mark on the city of Pine Lawn. Now, I don't know what these other folks are doing, but you had in Pine Lawn, I would say that you had folks who just weren't given basic dignity and respect as jailees, if you will, prisoners, if you will. And you're not a prisoner, really. You're innocent until proven guilty, and you're just simply awaiting trial. And so we have any number of those kinds of situations going on in the state of Missouri where people are innocent, and you're in prison or in jail. Let's say, for instance, you're in the workhouse. I'm going to change subject a little bit, just go over it for a second. So say, for instance, you're in a workhouse. You're waiting trial. You haven't been convicted of anything. You're not a criminal at all. You're still a citizen of the United States that's due all the respect of a citizen. Matter of fact, you're a citizen of the United States being inconvenienced right now for the sake of justice in the process. You with me? And so you should be treated with utmost respect and dignity. You have it there where they have mold, asbestos, all sorts of problems in the workhouse right now. It's called the workhouse. That's what they used to be. It used to be a workhouse, but it's the city jail. You have the right to vote while you're in jail because you're not in prison. You're just waiting trial. And so, so you have a right to go vote. There's no reason for a citizen of St. Louis, state of Missouri, United States, to go to a holding place where they are awaiting trial, being inconvenienced for the process of justice, to be infected with a mold, be infected with asbestos, being beat up on by hardened criminals, different things that nature. And so we're saying is that particular facility needs to be shut down, and folks are working very, very hard to shut it down. But we all need to get on the same page that you are not a prisoner just because you are in jail. And I think oftentimes, nothing against correction officers, and I don't want to paint a broad brush and make a generalization about all correction officers, but I do know that quite a few correction officers think that since you were in jail, you are a prisoner and should be treated adversarially, even if you're a prisoner. And that's one of the reasons I joined the prison committee. I think that just because you're a prisoner does not mean that you are not to be treated and afforded dignity and respect. And just because I am in jail, does not give you the right to treat me inhumanely or treat me like I'm garbage. I used to be a union representative, and I represented Local 410 of American Federation of State County Municipal Employees. And one of the groups that I represented was the trash collectors. And I'll never forget, one of my shop stewards came up with the slogan, just because we empty your trash doesn't mean you have to treat us like trash. And one year we were in negotiations. I don't know how I brought this up, but anyway, you know, old folks, you get to do stuff like this. Come on in, man. So what happens is, we send out to the nice senior citizens in South St. Louis, namely our older women. I mean, if you want to, I'm sorry, now I talk about discrimination and prejudice. I think it's okay to do it positively. So, because if you ever want somebody to attack City Hall, go get your older white women. I mean, just been my experience. I mean, mom, grandma, they know how to complain about what's going on in the city of St. Louis. And we went over South St. Louis, and we ground up a whole bunch of older white women and told them, if we don't get a raise, we're going on strike, and your garbage is going to stay in the back of your alleys. And we didn't threaten them like that. We just saying we can't afford to live off of this, and you just got to pay us more. And guess what we were asking for? 3%, as opposed to 1%. Come on. Anyway, they started calling. And the reason I bring that up is to say that you never should look down on another human being except to help them up. And unfortunately, in our society, we think that getting ahead a lot of times is how well we're able to, and how many people we're able to step over and step on. And so the point I'm making is that we just need to really work together to close some of these institutions. Some of these small towns that have their own fiefdoms and hold people for ransom. You've been held for ransom. Mm-hmm. You know, that's holding somebody for ransom. If you tell me I can't get out of prison until somebody comes and makes my bond, and my family's poor, so if I get locked up on the 5th, if my check don't come out till next month on the 3rd, you know, Chucky down, they stay in there all month long until I'm able to, you know, come up with the money. And now my lights get cut off the next month because I have to get Chucky out of prison, those kinds of things. So anyway, I did bring some of these letters with me today, just to give you all an idea of some of the stuff that NAACP deals with. We're also currently working together on a case. I'm not going to mention the guy's name because this is an active case and he hasn't given us permission to share it publicly. But again, this is another one of those cases where the guy believes that he's been in prison longer than what the court had ordered him to be in prison for. If the ACLU and NAACP and others, our city defendants, we can crack this scenario, I can go to my grave in peace. Here's what happens. You get, this is my theory, and this is what I've been this is what I've been looking at. You get sentenced to prison. The judge says this. When you get to prison, though, based on whatever policy, procedures, criteria that the Department of Correction has. They implement that over what the judge court orders. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I thought that the judge kind of overrides the Department of Corrections, and whatever the judge tells you to do, that's what you ought to be doing. And if you don't do what the judge tells you to do, I don't care if you're Department of Corrections or not, you can be held in contempt of court. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but you know, I've watched enough Perry Mason to know that that might just be right. Okay, that was an old reference. Everybody know Perry Mason?
Yeah, I know it.
Okay, okay.
A lot of stuff I say to them, they don't even listen. Well, not
That is
this
great.
cohort of interns, but
That's
the last
right.
4, I would say things like, "Look, I'm not giving out romper room instructions, okay?"
Yeah.
It's like, what's
Right,
wrong
romper
with
room.
Rome?
That is exciting.
I know, right? So
I
I was
love it.
giving myself away, but
I love it.
yeah.
I love it. Well,
Look it up, romper room.
yeah, romper room, and I never called my name Elston. We would know what that's about, but look up romper room. Just look at some videos. That was pretty neat show back in the day. But Perry Mason, a lawyer, television series. Did he ever lose a case?
No.
Never lost a case. So I mean, so that's on television.
Yeah, that's TV.
That's
right?
TV. Yeah. But like I said, I watched enough of those series to know that I think that's the way it goes. That you're supposed to do what the judge says do, and
Because the judge is following the sentencing guidelines.
so yeah, and even
Most
if
of them are following
yeah.
sentencing guidelines, so DOC
Right.
should be held accountable as well.
right, and even if they get it wrong, it's up to the prosecuting attorney to make the suggestion that you make the changes and make the corrections, Your Honor. But to get to the Department of Corrections, and they end up having you serve more time than what the judge has sentenced you to, and guess what? You don't find that out sometimes. Say, for instance, you got a 15-year sentence. You don't find that out until you come up for your 8th, 9th year for parole or something, hearing. You find out in a hearing a lot of times. And so that's the theory that I have that's going on. We haven't proven it yet. We haven't gotten it cleared yet. Another thing that I believe is going on in the state of Missouri is that you have quite a few people in what's called administrative, segregation, administrative segregation, or the hole. In the hole, you don't have access to the phones, you can't have visitors, and you have to pretty much stay in your cell. And
They
people,
also restrict the filing of
grievances as well, right. And so, was a time that folk have been in the hole for a year or more, we were able to negotiate with the Department of Corrections because based on the investigation guidelines, 30 days, 60 days, if it's beyond solving or something like that, extenuating circumstances, that's right, extenuating circumstances, you can be there for 120 days. But nobody should be in segregation or in the hole for more than, on the average, 30 to 60 days. And so we're telling people that if you run into anybody in prison in Missouri, you let us know. And that really has been, so far, a simple phone call to tell them that this person's up under investigation. Now, they can do a discipline and put you in a hole, that's different. But if you're up under an investigation, it should be on an average of 30 to 60 days. And so once you go past that 60 days, we need to let the Department of Corrections Adult Administration know about it, because then they'll start watching that particular inmate and determining whether or not that person should come out the hole prior to the end of the investigation, and or hurry them up to tell them to resolve it. But that practice of having folks in the hole for over a year should be over with. But of course, I'm not God. I'm not everywhere all the time. And boy, I tell you, what folks do to folk in prison is not always a positive, good thing. Correctional officers, just like the police on the street, in the criminal justice system, the police has the most power of anybody in the chain of command. Why do you think I say that? That the police officer has more power than anybody in the chain of criminal justice. Yeah, they determine right then and there a lot of times whether you're going to be arrested or not. They can lie on a report and mess you up. I think Missouri is probably one of the only places that I know that people have had folks, police officers, found out that police officer had lied on a report and lied on several reports, and not all of his cases be looked at, and people go free. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and that's the kind of thing I'm leaning on the ACLU or city defenders to, whenever you hear about a police officer writing up false reports and getting people in trouble, come to find out they were innocent and they were just lying, and then they get fired and they get sentenced, that the first thing we should do is ask for all of the cases that this person ever worked on, and make sure those folks get out of prison, because there are quite a few people in prison that are innocent. I think the FBI says 10% of all people in U.S. prisons are innocent, and if that's the FBI telling you that fact, you better believe it's probably more than that. So that's what they're willing to admit to. And you know that you watch on television, there are quite a few people who have been getting out of prison here lately, and it did a lot of time. Parents passed away, children growing up, they missed a lot of their lives based on false statements and false witnesses and different things of that nature. So, yeah. All right, so where we at now? Oh, it's only 2:09. Okay, we're doing good. All right, now, so I bought these with me just to give you an example of some of the stuff that we get. Now, I'm gonna ask, what's your name?
Madeline?
Madeline, would you be so kind as to, can you read that? It's pretty good penmanship. That's
Yeah.
good penmanship. Yeah.
Okay, great. To whom it may concern, I am, do I say the name?
No.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, you're so good.
Yeah,
Good
okay. I'm currently incarcerated for a domestic violence case. Stop Domestic Violence, Children Lives Matter. I believe deeply in my heart that I am, more names, sorry. I am a mother before anything of 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. I would like to speak to Al Sharpton personally so I can find out as much about Tupac Shakur as possible. My privacy matters. I also used to be a drug addict, but I am so washed up on that and am done. Hands up for Mike, like rest in peace, Mike Brown. Send my love to the family because this problem we have has to come to a complete stop. I'm fighting for my life. My children are depending on me, and I'm trying to stay strong for all of them. Thank you for your concerns and your support. I have to put my thinking cap on because I have some brainstorming to do. Thank you. P.S. I'm due time. My children really need me.
Okay. Yeah. So that's so. Now, did you grasp the complaint out of that though? What was the complaint? What does she want? I know she wants to meet Al Sharpton and Tupac Shakur. Well, she can't meet Tupac Shakur, can she? Okay, but.
No, I mean, her overarching issue is her time.
Time. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was a little, and I'm sure she probably was a little scattered while
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes what you guys will find when you go through the complaints. There's a lot of rambling in the letters, but eventually they get to the point. Yeah.
Is there also more to this letter? Because
I
it
think
says chapter 1 at the top.
Oh no, she's planning on writing more
Okay.
to us. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've got folks who write us on a regular basis. This is the first time we're getting some from this particular nice lady, and she is out. It looks like she's down in Hall Street. So that's the what do you call that? The transfer center. You know, when you're getting ready to come out.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's downtown on that one. All right. What's your name?
Chase.
Chase. Let me see. You got a Caleb and a Chase. got
Parvona.
Pavona. Love that name.
Cat.
Kat and Madeline.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Yes, thank you.
As justice-involved men, having served collectively many decades within this state's criminal justice system, we are actually aware of the urgent need for reform. If our NAACP branch were to articulate that need for reform in more specific terms, the list would include the adoption of substantial sentencing reforms to scale back unnecessarily lengthy prison terms, particularly for violent and repeat offenses, more comprehensive education and vocational rehabilitation programs to better prepare justice-involved persons for release, targeted interventions to bridge the gap between seemingly opposing groups, for example, victims' rights advocates, women's rights advocates, prisoners' rights advocates, opponents of the death penalty. To both promote and celebrate these efforts, the NAACP and Gavel Club wishes to invite you and the following reform advocates from across the state to participate in our 2019 Black History Month program.
Okay. So we get complaints about people serving more time than they should be serving. We get complaints about actual innocence, and that's another project, the Innocence Project. That's another national organization as well. We've referred people to the Innocence Project and actually got them exonerated based on DNA here in Missouri. So yeah, we've collaborated quite a few times with different organizations to get people out. So ACLU has been successful, NAACP is successful, the Innocence Project has been successful in the process of getting folks out of prison and or keeping them from going to jail. And we also get letters inviting us to the prison branches, because inside the prison branch, I don't know if I shared this with you all, that we actually have NAACP branches inside those prisons. And so those folks were called prisoner organizations. They pay dues. They have fundraisers. They sell popcorn. They have dinners. And they have Freedom Fund banquets and all kind of good stuff. So a lot of times we're able to get together and celebrate. Were you going to say something?
What is the number for last year's exonerations? I think it's like 386, close to 400.
Over the whole, you talking about nationwide?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In one year.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
imagine that? That's just 1 year of people being exonerated because they were wrongfully convicted. Now that's you take that over.
And I think somebody added up all the years that they actually spent in prison
Yeah.
too.
I can't remember the total number, but across the country in 1 year. So you look at that, if you were to multiply that by a decade or so.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
It is, and it's the destruction of so many people's lives. And and Missouri has a cap on how much they compensate you for the number of years.
Yeah.
What is the cap?
How do you mean? What is the amount of money that you can get? You can sue
So
them.
is it a
State
cap
of
on the
Missouri.
amount of money, or?
Cap on the amount of money you can sue for every year that you're in prison wrongfully in the state of Missouri.
But there's also a cap on the number of years that you can sue for, or no?
No.
Okay, just the amount.
Just
per
the amount for
year.
every year. Yep, just the amount for every year.
Not
Yeah.
And it's
the
and
amount,
really,
but-
how do you even put a number of
Yeah.
value on it?
Just exactly.
Right.
They charge for your life.
Exactly. Because on average, I think the average amount of years was like somewhere around
No, it was,
30
yeah, right. It was
years.
huge. Yeah,
30 years
it was
per
unbelievable.
person. I mean, if
person.
you took all of the numbers and
Right.
averaged the number of years they did, the average person wrongfully convicted did 30 years.
Yes, because it is. I mean, you're looking at people whose cases sometimes you're looking at people who have used up all of their legal processes. They know they're innocent. So what is the loop that's going to get them back in there? And so it just takes even more time for them to try to bring their case back around. So yeah, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So another example, case example. Does anybody remember the 13-year-old child that shot up the beauty supply store and allegedly, the initial report was that she killed the lady and shot the man, Asian proprietors of the beauty salon shop. Okay. Anyway.
Here in Missouri?
Here in Missouri.
Okay.
Several years ago in St. Louis County, actually, a 13-year-old girl goes into the beauty supply store and shoots the lady proprietor and shoots the man proprietor. The initial report was that she killed the lady and that the man had survived. Later we found out that the lady had survived and the gentleman had survived. The community was in an uproar. 13-year-old child, you know, what do they do, 13-year-olds who kill somebody or shoot somebody in an attempt to kill them? You certify them as an adult. And so the goal was, that's the direction they were headed. So I talked about doing good in the neighborhood and also being a referral for people or being assistants. Long story short, this particular little girl's aunt happened to be associated with one of the churches that belong to our district, if you will. And she got in contact with me because she knows I was with the NAACP and began to tell me a story that was different than what they were promoting on television. Oh, by the way, the initial news reports that you get, they are actually police reports. Now the police anchor people ain't did no investigation now. They just telling you what the police said. Now, I have law enforcement people in my family, and certainly I have law enforcement people that are my friends. But unfortunately, law enforcement people don't have a Bible in their mouth, and they do tell stories. And so the story that you get, a lot of times, is not quite accurate. You know, I know that a lot of times we find it hard to believe that people will do stuff like that, but I think you all with the ACLU, I think you all know that does happen, right? Okay, good. I see nods. Okay, all right. Thanks. So here we go. Here's what we'll find out. We get involved and we say, hold on, prosecutors. Let us find out what's really going on because we're hearing a different story than what you all are being told by the police. And they say, well, you know, you don't want to be embarrassed down the line, so hold on. And so we get mom, dad, auntie, grandma, and some other folks in our conference room, and they began to tell us the story of this 13-year-old child. What happens is, 13-year-old child hanging out with her girlfriend, they're over her girlfriend's mom's house. Girlfriend's mom gives her some synthetic marijuana. Now, okay, to be honest with you, I have to actually take 2 puffs of marijuana twice a month for my glaucoma. Okay, it keeps my eye from feeling like it's pressurized. Matter of fact, when they were out legalizing medical marijuana, I got probably more volunteer petition signed than anybody. I was out there, boy. At least, you know. But I mean, that's all I need to have in order to keep the pressure out of my eye. Somebody actually gave me some synthetic marijuana before, though. I'm a grown man. I can't deal with synthetic marijuana. So what do you think a 13-year-old undeveloped mind is experiencing with this stuff? So she goes to the beauty supply store. The lady wasn't so very nice to these young African-American, I would imagine, smart mouth, sassy little girls. And so she goes, she's high on synthetic marijuana. And so she goes home and gets her dad's gun, comes back to the store, and gonna let that lady know, you can't be going around talking to folks like that. Pow, 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 right? So what we find out though, so this happens. Girlfriend runs off and gets out of town, and you know, police couldn't find her, nobody could find her, right? So eventually, when we got in contact with the family and everything, the family, we told her, well, you need to come back, you need to turn yourself in. Now, this particular case, we did get the young lady a lawyer, because she didn't need a lawyer and the family didn't have any money. So we did pay for the lawyer on that, because it had, overreaching implications on it about how you treat young people in general, in period. And so we got this lawyer because we wanted to make sure that the criminal justice system understood that just because you're 13, just because you create a crime, we don't always ask what you do. We need to ask for a 13-year-old and under those kind of ages why you did what you did. Because if we understand why you did what you did, then we'll know, what you did. So anyway, girlfriend goes and she goes, gets the gun, shoot the lady. She runs off. Now, here's the person that's really at fault, is her best friend's mom, who gave her the synthetic marijuana, right? And also ran and tried to flee the police. And so what ends up happening, this child goes, right now, she's in juvenile custody. She'll probably be in juvenile custody since she's 18, which is better than her spending a lifetime, behind bars based on them certifying her as an adult. Can you imagine that one mistake that an adult influenced you to do will cause you the rest of your life to spend behind bars? And so that we were successful in that we were able to get her treatment. She's one of the best students in the class. Young lady is very, very, very smart and is doing well and looking forward to getting out at 18. And this was probably about 2 years ago, so she probably got 3 more years of being a juvenile. Oh, they let her out every now and then too. She comes home on weekends, visit with her dad and all that stuff. We're successful. Now we're able to get dad from being in trouble about the gun because dad is blind. He thought he put it somewhere else. At least that's the story, this other blind man told me to say. Because, you ought to keep your guns safe, though, people. If you got guns, I'm all for them having guns. I'm just not yeah. I don't care about people having guns. Just want to make sure they're safely away from kids, away from children. Okay, so now, it is now 2:24.
How, can I ask a question?
Question, Q&A time.
So how, what can we do about these lead stories that come out on the news that are based on police reports? It seems like something that we really need to address at some level because that's where most people get their news from. And
Yeah.
so they get stoked on misinformation.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that? And the news people, what do they have? Somebody sitting around curating police reports?
Mm-hmm. Right. That's all they do. Yeah.
Okay.
You get a call and you go get the cameras out and they're waiting. Not the police report necessarily. They're not getting the police report. They're getting what the police are saying.
They're saying to them.
Yes. Yeah. And so oftentimes the chief comes back and says, well, my officers lied. Sometimes you might get that, but that's down the road. That's not the beginning of the incident and stuff. So one of the things I've thought about is making sure they give a disclaimer saying that this is a report from officer such and such and such and such, and does not necessarily mean that this is the case. People are innocent until proven. Every now and then they need to say stuff like that.
Disclaimer, right?
Yeah, some kind. Yes. I think some kind of disclaimer because you're not getting the other side of the story. They don't even take the time out to get the other side of the story. This one guy is in prison now, and it's a hard case, but they allege. This is not recent, but this is some years ago. They allege that the guy beat his girlfriend's baby to death. The baby was given Tylenol, and they had a supply of Tylenol at that particular time that was actually killing children. This guy's in jail for that. And even after they presented evidence that was the case, the jury still convicted him. Which was really crazy. But they convicted him.
If it was beating, can't you have evidence of
Right.
whether or not a child's been beaten?
Right.
Okay.
They didn't have evidence of a child being beaten.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think? Because they saw the news.
They saw the news.
News.
Yeah. It looked. When you see that looks bad.
Yeah.
I used to get upset about it.
Yeah.
Until I found out better. So I understand people getting. Wouldn't you? Don't you? You get up, somebody beating up a kid.
Right.
But the case is, kids not actually being beaten up, or guess who really beat the kid up and said he did it? Mom.
Yeah.
You know, instead of asking why, what's not, come on in. Instead of asking instead of asking, what you did, we ought to ask why you did it.
Right.
And that way we get closer to solving a community's problem. And so you look at, what is that what's called when after you have a child, some women suffer from that postpartum depression? Yeah. And so, but the easy thing to do is say, I ain't beating no kid. He been beating her. How ugly is that? Yeah, but people been known to scapegoat somebody else and put it on them. So.
In your opinion, in terms of resources, the people who need to access resources, are they getting them? Are they accessing them? Okay, so tell me a little bit about
Now
that.
that's good. That's a good question. All right, so here's what happens. You have to make sure I come back to that point, but I want to make this point as I go to that point, but it's relevant. You have state representatives and state senators. They control the budget of a lot of state agencies that determine what happens to you, be it in the criminal justice system, on your job, whatever, okay? But people do not engage them. And so the first place they need to be going is talking to their state rep and their state senators. State representatives, state senators, I don't know if it's changed, but they used to be, they can go to the prisons and unannounced in Missouri. I don't know if they still have that. Yeah.
Recently, Tony told me they can.
Okay, then good. If Tony would know.
Yeah, we have some.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
remind me, I have to talk to you about ADSEG case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. So, if you are living day to day, you're being marginalized. You don't have the knowledge, resources, energy sometimes to engage the system like it should be engaged by a citizen of St. Louis, Missouri, and United States. So with that being said, a lot of resources that we know about, because one, we're in the field, but at the same time, we know about it because we're, functioning citizens as opposed to dysfunctional citizens, unfortunately. But they don't know about it. We know about them. They don't know about them. And so a lot of times, you can have a tendency of coming across aggravated and upset and extremely disappointed at people who don't know anything about the system at all. It's bad enough not to know everything you can know about the system, but it's bad to not know anything about the system, and adult male or adult female. But that is what we see a lot of times. Now, that is the other reason why the NAACP does exist, though. We actually don't do a lot of the actual work as much as we do the actual referrals and follow-ups. A lot of times folks don't know that during the Obama administration that there's a program that will save your house and get your mortgage reduced. A lot of folks don't know that, again, your state, you got a child in prison. Bruce Franks is your state representative, and Bruce Franks sits on the prison committee for the Missouri Congress. What better person to call than Representative Bruce Franks?
Right.
Bruce Franks can go right on in, ask about this particular person, and figure out some kind of way to hold up their budget if they don't do the right thing by you. And prison reform today is not just a progressive Democrat issue or a left-wing liberal Green Party issue. It absolutely has to do with Republicans as well, saying that we just can't continue to afford to keep people locked up indefinitely and feeding them, housing them, clothing them, and medicating them. One of the biggest problems we have, I don't know why I got on some prison so much, that's probably on the prison committee, but one of the problems you have in the prisons also is you can be dying of cancer. And your prognosis is that you're going to be dead next week. The state of Missouri will not let you out. How crazy and inhumane is that? Because really, it's better on our budget if we let you out. You go get Medicaid, Medicare, whatever you can get from the state or the feds, and you're off of the prison industrial complexes dying. Now, I mean, you on stage 4 cancer, unless you seriously psychotic, but you know, you got people who, they're a member of the NAACP, they're a member of the Toastmasters, they're a member of any number of clubs or churches and synagogues and mosques inside the prison. They've been a model prisoner. The prison guards go to them and tell them, talk to some of these younger prisoners and inmates and help them, mentor them through the process. And you've been doing that for the last 30 years. So you've been a model prisoner. You've got stage 4 cancer. You may live 6 months to another year, but they still won't let you out. And one of the reasons they say don't let you out is because based on the severity of your crime. They won't let people on probation or parole, stating based on the severity of your crime. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how.
But it's
That's
been
supposed to go.
proven statistically that as you age,
Yes.
the likelihood of you committing those types of crimes that are deemed to be just egregious,
Yeah.
it's just not there anymore.
Right.
So it doesn't even make sense budgetarily to hold people in those conditions, whether they're sick or not.
Mhm.
Older you get,
Right.
people, you know,
Right.
people bypass that stage of indiscretions, you know, by the
Right.
time you reach about, I think it's like a little 35, 40 years old.
Mhm.
You can no longer measure a person's future by those
Right.
past transgressions.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, okay, so if I understood you, the accessing of resources,
Mhm.
especially if a person is in a poverty type situation,
Right.
has to do with information. If you're not surrounded by people who have knowledge, or you're not in connection with people who are doing the work, then they're
Right.
just letting life happen to them.
Yeah.
So it's like an issue of either you live in life and you're in charge of it and you're directing it, or you're just letting life live you. And so when things happen, it's an issue of, well, I don't know what to do. It's
Yeah.
just what it is. It's the system against
This-
me.
this
But
right.
sometimes it's not the system against you, but there could be some things that you could access to be able to better advocate. Another thing is teaching people how to advocate for themselves. Most people in that situation, and I have to say, even folks who are not doing the work that we do, and they are educated, they don't. If they come up against a very, very serious matter, they don't know how to advocate for themselves.
No. No. Exactly. Exactly. And so, but that's what we're here for, because once you make it to us, we should be able to help you get through. I mean, we've got people called us, and our calls come from Hispanic people. Our call, men, women. We've got gay, lesbian, LGBT community, and so if you get to us, we can help you. Let me go right back real quick. Jessica is in, where is Jessica? Potosi Correctional Center. Now, her name is Jessica. She is in the Potosi Correctional Center. And that's okay because she's public, so I can say her name. Potosi Correctional Center is not a women's prison. Her name is Jessica.
But is this
And
transgender?
Jessica, transgender. Jessica is the president of the NAACP branch at Potosi Correctional Center, and won her case to be identified as a transgender, and now is fighting to get her birth certificate changed. It's not automatic in Missouri. Other states, particularly your eastern states and your western states, it's that little middle part of America.
Progressive Missouri.
Right.
Midwestern stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's right down there, and
I
then
left
then
here at
south.
18 and came back 34 years later, ain't nothing changed.
Yeah,
I was like,
slow,
what?
So we
slow.
were talking about, I'm like, oh,
Slow,
that's just
right,
the Bible
right.
Belt. Like,
In a time, somebody said time warp.
Uh-huh.
Was it you? Did you say
Yes,
something
yeah,
about
yeah,
that?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it felt like.
It's
It was
a
like a
time-
time warp,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's
But it's
amazing.
intentional though. It's not by accident.
I
Man,
know.
that's bad.
Talk to me about intentional. Talk to me about intentional.
Well,
What do
I
mean
you
by
know, listen.
Mm.
Intentionality
Uh-huh.
has a lot to do with where you are in life. I mean, even us personally, we can be intentional about something
Mhm,
or
mhm,
not.
mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
anytime you're gonna change in your
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
you purpose that,
Right,
right?
right.
A state like Missouri,
They benefit from being
they
backwards?
benefit from, yes,
Uh-huh.
there are segments of people that benefit here
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this
you
state.
say, you're right. They got power.
to maintain,
Okay.
absolutely,
Yeah, I
and
got
so a lot of it is generational.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this thought around maintaining for generations, right?
Yeah.
Or the same families and interest groups maintain the purse strings in this state.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you want to be honest about it, you can sit down and check it out.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't have a progressive mindset at all,
Mm-hmm.
but it does benefit. I mean, there's just there's a way of being that says, okay, let's not rock the boat,
Right.
and that's Midwestern, not
Well, I
just
was gonna say,
Missouri.
that's
the
Midwest.
Right,
That's
right,
Midwest.
Girls
right.
and everything else.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Rock the boat.
So
Yeah.
we look crazy to folk.
Yeah, right. You should. Yeah. Thank God we look crazy to folks.
Yeah,
Yeah, we ought to look crazy. Anybody have any other questions?
What is the way that you disseminate the resources that you have? Like you mentioned that
Mm.
if people are able to call you or get in contact with you, but do you like reverse that in terms of like outreach or
Yeah, we have.
Facebook or groups
we-
or
we-
other ways?
Yeah. So no, we don't do Facebook or anything of that nature. And in fact, well, NAACP is so popular. It would be something like other like organizations, like your state rep or your senators, that probably the resource that folks don't know to get in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
But the NAACP, and as much as folks want to complain about our relevancy, we've done the surveys. 90% of people that respond to the survey said the NAACP is still relevant today and effective. What happens is folks get in contact with us all the time, and our job a lot of time is to refer them to
Right.
the place that's going to help them, and then follow up with the referral. Like I said, we get calls from people who have issues with their Social Security. Now, why would you call the NAACP? Because you have an issue with your Social Security. Well, I'm black, or I'm gay, or I'm this, and I think I'm being discriminated against. And you very well may be. But guess who can get your Social Security turned right back on? Your state congressman.
Right.
You call your congressman, really. Your congressman calls or inquires. He doesn't have to. He or she doesn't have to make a threat at all. It's just the fact that they've called and inquired, and that they've opened up a case about your Social Security. And if your Social Security wasn't closed for a legitimate reason or some reason that you can overlook or whatever, they couldn't have it back on. And so we get those calls. We get calls, folks being discriminated against on a job. That's, other than prison issues, that's probably one of the most that we get. And folks don't know to go downtown to the federal building and file a EEOC complaint. And so I've gone and escorted them downtown to do that, or I have them come in the office and give them the verbiage that I thought would be appropriate for an EEOC complaint.
But will the EEOC open up a complaint off the bat? I think you have to go through the natural grievance processes through HR with your employer first in order to establish that you filed the grievance, get their response, same as we do with the jails and prisons, okay? So that the EEOC has some basis for
Right.
whether or not they open up. So
Right. Now, some jobs don't have grievance procedures.
okay.
Yeah, so before you get downtown to EOC, you're gonna, let's say for instance, give you an example. Somebody calls me, say they have an issue on their job. Some, now we found this out too. Some union contracts don't have discrimination as part of their grievance procedure. Automatically, if you have a grievance about discrimination, it's outside of outside of that. So that's one thing. But yeah, so I would call the union rep, set up a meeting with the union rep, or have a three-way conversation on the phone with the union rep, talk to the union rep. I mean, we've gotten real good responses once we got the unions involved in those kinds of complaints. We had one employer come down, and I mean, bought everybody lunch and everything. I was like, oh, this guy. But he was saying, under no certain circumstances are we interested in participating in anything that supervisor did to this young man. And, sir, I'm sorry for what happened to you, blah, 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 blah. You know, the whole kid and caboodle. You know, got his days back and all that stuff with no issue. Yeah, but so yeah, you do have to use up all of your internal mechanisms, if you will, resources, if you will. But the EOC, there's just any number of places that we've had to refer people. Department of Natural Resources made a referral to the Department of Natural Resources, Missouri Department of Natural Resources. This is what happened. Church is buying a building, getting ready to close. Several days before the closing date, the lender says, I need to make sure that there's no contaminants on that property because our records show that we did a background check and our records show that there was a gas station there and then some type of print company. And so we want to make sure there are no toxins on the property before we will give you the loan. And if there's taxes on there, you know, you guys might be, you know, intoxicated. Might be able to sue the person who's trying to sell you the building because you're in there right now. Anyway, I got in contact with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and they were so glad to hear from the NAACP. They don't give black people no money in the state of Missouri from the Department of Natural Resources. And so she was really happy to hear from me. And so they want to pay $15,000 or so for a phase 1 investigation of the land. That came back inconclusive. And so now they're ready to pay $50,000 for the phase 2 investigation. That's where they actually go drill down and get the dirt samples and all that kind of stuff and take it. They willing to pay that.
Wow.
The owners must have known that there were contaminants on the property because they were unwilling to do a phase 2. Even though we said, more than likely, if it does show some contaminants, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources is willing to do the remediation. So you couldn't beat all of that, but they didn't want it. So they wouldn't close. So they go and say that you all owe us for being in a building because it took a whole year to figure out this closing, get this process going. You owe us back rent for a whole month. So, you know, I referred them to a lawyer. They actually took the case pro bono. Didn't even charge the pastor any money. And the settlement was, you go your way, and they go theirs. No harm, no foul. And I said, that was too easy. But yeah. You know how you feel like you got gypped because you go, that was easy. I wonder if I'm contaminated because I went over that church a couple of times. So I might be contaminated. That's probably why he said you go your way and we go by it. Yeah. Anybody else? All right, 246.
All right, awesome job.
Oh boy, woo!
I appreciate you.
All right. Well, you guys were a lot of fun to talk to.